Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm doing a Q&A episode. So I've had two, four, six, eight questions come in during the week and I'll be answering them now. And then we'll be back to normal episodes next week if I do an episode this week. But I've got I've been sort of living on the edge recently and just sort of recording sometimes the date of the release of the podcast, but I haven't been more than a week in advance for well, months. So what I'm planning on doing tomorrow, being which is Monday, is sending out a lot of messages to people to get them to come on the podcast, so I can record a few episodes, have them banked up, so I don't have to do one every single week. I can do a few, and then we'll be back to normal programming. The first question came in was from Andy Rosethorn, and he has said, what's been the proudest moment in your landscaping career?" That would be the garden which is behind me, which is the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show build that we did in 2023. It's something like, because I've done a few there, but always wanted to do a big one that we designed and built ourselves, and not only just do one, but do something that you're proud to put your name to, and something I've done in the past is, even though we'd built gardens there, I felt like we could have done more if I'd planned things better. Mainly, that was probably the main thing, was just being able to plan things better. So there's one thing to do a garden there, but to actually be happy with what you've put, what you've come up with, what you've completed, is another thing. And I think maybe the second boutique garden for ourselves that we designed and built, I was happy with that. But and then probably the first couple, because they were a lot more simple back in 2011 and 12. But other than that, I wasn't happy with. Like, we basically ran out of time. So you put something up that is a finished product in inverted commas, but you could have done a lot more if you had more time. So that wasn't the case with the 2023 build, because I put a lot more time into planning that, and had also learnt a lot in the previous gardens that we'd done. So um, but we got a silver medal for it. And it's one of those things where I've always heard people say, I don't care what medal I get, I just want to do something that I'm proud of. And I always thought that's rubbish. I'd rather, you want to win. But I can honestly say that, well, I don't know whether I would say the same if we didn't get a medal, but um, I'm extremely happy with getting silver, and also the result that we put together. Um, yeah, it was just an awesome experience, and I even had one day off on that during the build because it was my son's birthday during the build, and that will be the same thing for the garden that I'm doing this year coming, or next year. I'll be having the Monday before the show opens off, because that's my son's birthday. So, because back when I did one of the boutique gardens that we designed and built, I I think he would have been two. It wouldn't have been one, but so it would have been his second birthday. So he's not really that aware of what was going on. But it was during the build, so I finished. So I worked basically on his birthday, on his second birthday, and then we celebrated his birthday on a different day. And like I said, he doesn't know or care about it. But looking back on photos when they show up, opening presents a few days after it, it bothered me seeing that. Um, so yeah, I've decided I would never do it again. So that's what I'm doing. He's not doing that again. So I'll be having one of the days off during the build, and it sounds extreme, but or you plan for what you've got to build it. So if you had 3 weeks to build the garden, no one's going to do it in 9 days. Just like people do it in 9 days now because they've got 9 days to build it. So I'll just plan for 8 days. Um, but yeah, that would definitely be the proudest moment. And the garden I'm going to be doing next year will be, I'll be building it by myself. But regardless of what happens, I don't think I'll be prouder of that one than what I was this one that I did 2023. Because that was, yeah, it's a good experience having other people involved with it. And I just want to have more of a challenge and save some money also, and be doing it by myself next year. So that's a good question to start us off, Andy. Thank you. Next question is from Dan Scrapes. If you had to pick golden diosma He said Yakka. I assume he means Yakka. Or Agapanthus. What would it be? He didn't say what I'm picking it for, but if I assume that he means if you had to plant one, I would go with an Agapanthus, but one of the dwarf varieties, because I reckon there's some awesome dwarf varieties Agapanthus. So um, probably a black one. I think there's one called Black Panther. But yeah, if you don't go with one of the big ones, they actually look decent. So they're not a bad plant. Whereas I haven't seen any good versions of a yucca. Actually, I lie. So yucca elephant types is not the good one, but yucca, I think it's Desmetiana, might be that's a good one. Um, but the golden Osmia, actually did have used some of them and did a bit of topiary with them too. So they got some nice fine leaves. But I would go with the Agapanthus. Next one is more of a comment from the plant man is Dan, and luckily I waited until this evening to do this because it's currently 9:05 p.m. on Sunday before this is released. And luckily, I have uh, waited until then because I saw that Dan has he's back on the podcast train. So he had a podcast. I think it's called The Plant Man is Dan, uh, and it was awesome. Like I love listening to Dan on podcasts, and he's back. He's done an episode with Daniel Althouse, so I'll be listening to that tomorrow because it came out today. But he said, "Congrats on getting in the Time magazine charts." So he's referring to an Instagram story post I did that I doctored because Time Magazine released their 100, the 100, I don't know if it was most influential or it was the top 100 podcasts of all time that have influenced the genre. Um, and I edited it so they had photos of all of some of the people involved in it, and I edited my podcast onto that, and had a lot of people congratulating me for it. But I have not made the Time Magazine's top 100 influential podcasts yet. I assume it's coming one day soon. But Joe Rogan didn't make it either, so it's that I think that means my podcast is as good as Joe Rogan's, as popular, which is just a good result. Cam from Abcam Horticulture has said, and there's actually another question. There's two questions kind of similar, so I'll read them both out and then answer together. But Cam has said, "Are you planning to transition completely off the tools and go into design only one day?" And then Steven Island has said, "Do you ever want to be off the tools fully, or is the construction side too fulfilling?" So it's funny because like I, if someone said, "Click, flick this switch, and you can do design only, and you'll have heaps of work," then I would flick that switch and do that. But I'd still want to do construction, like little projects, like I'd do, you know, feature concreting or a bit of paving here and there. So I like doing certain elements of it, but not so much the whole project, even though I still do enjoy doing that. But I want to be able to, walk properly and sit down and not be in pain uh, later in life. So ideally, I'd like to get off the tools before I have to get off the tools. But um, it's funny because we've got so much, like, I'll never run out of work in construction, and I get flurries of work in design. Like I'll get heaps of designs. I had three on at once earlier this year, and then I haven't had one since then, and that was probably 2 months ago. So yeah, I'd probably have to think more about how to start marketing for designs so that that kind of work can start coming in. I'd probably need to start being a bit more professional on Instagram. That might help a little bit, but I am who I am, so I'll do what I enjoy, and then you're going to attract some people who want to work with that kind of person. But maybe I want people who don't want to work with that kind of person. So that's something I'll need to think about going forward. But um, yeah, I'll probably it might mean showing less construction work during like showing less construction on the Instagram page, perhaps, and sort of showing more design work, and then take like I think at the moment it says we're a design and construction company, so I'll take the construction part of that. So even though we'll still do designs, so still do bits of construction, we'll sort of look like a design only company. But yeah, it's because it's the reason I also say that I'll never run out of construction work is because I only stay small and it takes months to do a job. Whereas if you do a design, you could knock it out in 2 weeks. So you've got to do a lot more designs to keep you busy for a year than construction projects. And it's also that a lot of people want to uh, find someone who does both. So they want the designer to do the construction sometimes. So yeah, it's just something I've got to sort of almost restart the business with a different mindset. But luckily, I've got plenty of time. The body's feeling good. So, and we've got also something that will help is we've got projects that I have designed that we're building. We've done a couple already, and the next one we're starting is one as well, which is going to be a pretty cool one. So it's almost, yeah, like I said, starting a new business, and that's something I've spoken about to designers about. A challenge is when they start a design business, you don't have photos of projects that you've designed and built because you've got to have time for the plans to establish and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's something I'll be able to start building on and having more of a focused mindset on it as well, thinking about the future in that way. Attila, the horticulturist, has said, "What's your advice regarding excavating equipment? Do you own, hire, or sub it out?" I don't know if it's been like 2 years since I was doing one of these Q&As every second week. Sorry, every week. But one of the questions I did speak a little bit about excavation equipment, and my thoughts on it seem to change all the time. I've never owned any like an excavator or a um, mini loader, but and I've said I never would. And then every now and I think, oh, maybe wouldn't be a bad idea. I currently hire little bits and pieces that we do, but subbing it out has been something I've been doing a lot more often. And the guy we use, Aaron from In Deep Earthworks, is who we've been using, and he's just, yeah, awesome. So not only can we be doing other stuff while he's doing that, but he's quicker at it than what we do it, does a better job than what we can do. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But sometimes it's not worth getting him in there because it's not small or tight access. So we do a little bit, but so I don't own anything, and it's more about the maintenance and also the cost of having it. Yeah, you've got to be paying it off all the time, and sometimes if they break down, you've got to rehire it. But yeah, it's something I always think about changing my mind, and I think I'll be happy with whichever way I go. Like if I reckon I'd be happy if I got a machine, but I'll also be happy if I don't get one. Um, and then if I was going to get one, do I get an excavator or a small mini loader? Because we hire the mini loaders a lot more than what we do the excavator. So a mini loader is just like a bobcat, basically a small bobcat that you stand on the back of. So that I'm able to load a truck with that, and you can do small excavations with it as well. And then you can get attachments as well, so you can get an auger to dig holes with it. So yeah, but they're expensive. It's insane how expensive they are. Not only the machine, but then you've also got to buy a trailer for it as well. And I assume you've got to get insurance for it, which would be expensive. So yeah, at the moment, I just when I know I've got a job where I'm going to be doing excavation, I allow for the hire of that machine on the quote, so you can't lose on it. Baltic Landscapes said, "What's the best adhesive or application to stick natural stone to fiberglass pools or spillways?" I think like we don't do a lot of fiberglass pools, but I believe T-Rex is a good product. I think that's from Soudal. Don't know how you pronounce it, Soudal. They're the supplier of the T-Rex. They're like a silicon tube adhesive, so you use a caulking gun for it. And I recommended to Baltic Landscapes I would contact Soudal and find out which one of their products is the best to use for it, because his example was in a spillway, so that's going from like a spa to a pool. So you put a paver there, and the water flows over the top of that paver. But so it's basically going to be potentially in water all the time if water gets underneath the paver. So I would talk to the one of the suppliers. So I'd either talk to them or talk to Marpe, find out what their best suggestion is. And I think he suggested that Bostik. I think that he said there was two letters at the end of it. Might be Bostik FC. Uh, they have that's a product as well that one of the recommended materials for it. I recommended substrates was fiberglass. So that one looks like a good product as well. But it's not, you don't just put something that you think might be all right. You need to look into what the suitable substrates are. And a lot of time when you call these companies, they're very helpful and tell you what will and won't work and what sort of pre-preparation you might need to do. Like you might need to put a primer down on top of a fiberglass or sort of make it a bit rougher than what it is already. So yeah, because you don't want to be going back to fix up a popped paver, especially when it's in a pool. And also when if you like the when I was looking up the details of that Bostik product, it was talking about how much flexibility it's got. So then that made me think we also might want to use cork instead of grout on those spillways. So because if there's a little bit of movement and there's grout there, then the grout's going to crack and then that's going to let water in between it as well. So yeah, there's a couple of bits to think of there. And last question is from Green Effects Landscaping. What's the best way to work out your cuts for a curved timber bench seat? And it's coincidental. It's not coincidental. It's fortunate that this was last because I had to go back to someone else who had asked this question and copy and paste what I said to them because it's a little bit involved and there's a little bit of maths around it, so it's not the most exciting answer. But um, when I'm doing it, so it's like when you're doing a fire pit, it's like a circular fire pit and it's got the bench seating in there. I've done a few of them. And each decking board is cut on an angle because otherwise the gaps would be, very different if you just left them uncut. So what I do is I use our Landworks CAD program, so a CAD program to work it out. So it's quite easy doing that, and then that pretty much gives me the answer. But if you're wanting to do it manually, most of the time we're using 135 mil decking board or something around that. So let's assume that we're using 135 mil decking boards. Um, and we're going to use 5 millimeter gaps between them, 140 millimeters total. That's what the decking board is going to be at the back of the seat, so the furthest away. Um, I'll read out what I've written down to see if that makes sense. The back of the seat, which is the start of the board, and this one is assuming that there's a 1500 millimeter diameter, 1500 millimeter radius for the back of the seat. So from the center of the fire pit to the back of the seat is 1500 millimeters. So the back of the seat is 1500 millimeters away from the center of the fire pit. So we go from 140 to 0 over 1500 millimeters. So 140 is the back of the seat. That's how wide the board is. And then if we went all the way to the center of the fire pit, it's going to be 0 at that point because it's all sort of fanning in towards the center of the circle. And that works out to be that it shrinks. So to get from 140 to 0 over 1500 mil, it shrinks 0.09333 millimeters per millimeter. So if the depth of the seat is 450 millimeters, you multiply 450 times that number of 0.0933, and that will tell you what it needs to be at the front of the seat. So it works out to be close to, so 450 times that number is close to 42. So the front of the seat is 42 millimeters smaller than the back of the seat. And then when you take the 5 millimeters off for the gap, that means you're going from 135 down to 93. So if it was still using 140, 42 less than that, you'd be going 140 down to 98. But we're taking 5 millimeters off both of those because that's the join. So the join will only be relevant when we're actually putting the decking board in place. So before that, we've just got to cut the decking board. So you go from 135, which is full, and cut down 42 millimeters off it. So it'll be 93. And then so you cut all them, sit them all out, and that's how you do it. And I'm not sure whether the most accurate way is to work it out with the gaps or ignore the gaps. But I'll work it out both ways, and it's 1.5 millimeters difference if you do or don't. So you can fudge that in the join. But that is how I work out the gaps. And whenever anyone has asked me, I've told them just if you're doing a bench seat and you want to know, just send me a message with some measurements like the radius and how wide your decking boards are, and I can work it out and tell you, which is a lot easier than explaining it, as you may have just realised. So that is the last question. So thank you very much for everyone who sent through a question. Back to normal programming next week. And I'm also going to put out a Instagram message an Instagram story to get people to send in suggestions of some guests that I should get on the podcast. So if you don't see that on Instagram, just feel free to send me a message or email or carrier pigeon. Let me know if there's someone you want to hear on the podcast. Even if someone has mentioned them at the end of the podcast as someone they recommend, I forget a lot of those. So feel free to send me a reminder of someone you want to hear on the podcast. But thank you very much again, and see you next week.